You're listening to the Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured. Hello and welcome back to the Cultured Bumpkin. Today I'm going to read a poem called Father by Edgar A Guest, one of my dad's favorite authors, poets. Now, I have just heard a song by a British singer named James Blunt, and it's called Monsters. And it's not what you think. It's a song he wrote, if you're not familiar, that when he heard that his dad was very sick, and so the song is sort of addressing coming to terms with his dad dying. And I'm going to link it in the show notes. I'm not sure I've ever been that moved by a song before. Maybe it's because I lost my own dad. I don't know. You can be the judge. It may not hit you like it hit me, but I was kind of a mess after I heard that song. But before we read this poem, so, I was thinking about my own dad and stuff. What an amazing man he was. I want to share the last thing he ever said to me. You know what the last thing he ever said to me was? And I'm so thankful for this. There's so many people that, an argument was the last thing, or, whatever. Maybe they weren't on good terms with their dad, or I don't know. But I was on great terms with my dad, and the last phone call that he had, he was sick unto death, and it ended up being our last conversation. He said, "Son, I love you. I'm very proud of the man that you've become. And that will go with me to my grave." I'm just so thankful for that. Anyway, let's get to the poem before I break down again. Here's the poem. It's called Father. Used to wonder just why Father never had much time for play. Used to wonder why he'd rather work each minute of the day. Used to wonder why he never loafed along the road and shirked. Can't recall a time whenever Father played while others worked. Father didn't dress in fashion. He sort of hated clothing new. Style with him was not a passion. He had other things in view. Boys are blind to much that's going on about 'em day by day, and I had no way of knowing what became of Father's pay. All I knew was when I needed shoes, I got 'em on the spot. Everything for which I pleaded, somehow Father always got. Wondered season after season why he never took a rest, and that I might be the reason that I never even guessed. Father set a store on knowledge. If he'd lived to have his way, he'd have sent me off to college, and the bills been glad to pay. That I know was his ambition. Now and then he used to say he'd have done his earthly mission on my graduation day. Saw his cheeks were getting paler, didn't understand just why. Saw his body growing frailer. Then at last I saw him die. Rest had come. His tasks were ended. Calm was written on his brow. Father's life was big and splendid, and I understand it now. That reminds me a lot of my dad. The first verse, not so much, because he always made time with me and my brothers and sisters, my mom. He was really good about that. He was not a workaholic. He was a hard worker. You'd never see him playing while others work, nothing like that. But he was not a workaholic. He always made time for everyone. He was that kind of guy. Anyway, if you still have a dad and you're on good terms with him, or maybe even if you're not, you ought to give them a call today, tomorrow, certainly this week, and just tell them, I love you. And, just tell them you're thankful for them. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform you heard this on? I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.